Well, John, it's been quite a 7 days for the FAI from this time last week preparing for the game against Denmark to announcing a new managerial team, not just for the next 2 years, but even beyond that this afternoon. Firstly, though, the decision to part company with Martin O'Neill. Why now? What happened that you felt now was the time that you had to make that choice?
I think there was a couple of things. First of all, I want to pay tribute to Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane. I think it's really important that that's said. And the backroom staff with Steve Cuppy and Steve Walford and Seamus McDonagh. Over the 5 years, they contributed brilliantly to Irish football. I've said it many times, but I need to repeat it because your listeners need to hear this. They got us the last 16 of the European Championships, beaten by France, who went on to the finals. Here in the Aviva Stadium, probably less than a year ago or so, we were a goal up with 60 minutes to go, and we could have made the World Cup. So, and on both occasions, we were seeded 4 in those groups. So they've done a really good job. The last 12 months have been tough. Martin, to be fair, has blooded a lot of young players, maybe 12 or 13. But I think the sense was we had officially got relegated come Friday night from the Nations League. Attendances were dropping, and the football had got poor over the last period. I think Martin would accept that himself. So I sat down with Martin in London on Tuesday night with Michael Cody, our honorary secretary, spoke about it as openly as I'm speaking it to you, had a good conversation, and we all felt the best time now was to part ways in a way that was done professionally and with a handshake.
Do you have any regrets about the contract that was offered and signed earlier in the year and the extra expense and almost the sense that it was a wasted year for Irish football?
I don't think you can look at it at 12 months. I think you've got to look at, was that managerial appointment good for Irish football? And we've had success in our last 2 managerial appointments. Trapattoni and Tardelli were good appointments. We got qualified. Martin O'Neill, Roy Keane was a good appointment for Irish football. I think the last 12 months have been tough, but a lot of young players have been blooded, 12 or 13. And those young players being blooded will stand to Mick McCarthy and Stephen Kenny as they go on to manage Ireland.
This new deal that's been announced today, it's quite unusual, it's quite unprecedented to not just announce one manager. Mick McCarthy's here till 2020, and then Stephen Kenny taking over with the under-21 job for these 2 years and then taking the senior role. How did that come together? Was it something that you had in your mind for quite a while, that when the opportunity came you'd go down this route, or did it all happen in the last 3 or 4 days?
Well, the first thing is when people are in positions managing teams, it's not right to be having discussions after, while they're in those positions. So the association would have for quite a while felt after Noel King had stepped down that Stephen Kenny would have been our absolute choice for the 21s and managing the underage teams. Once the decision had been made that the Martin O'Neill and Roy and the backroom staff would come to the position with them, the candidate in our minds would have been Mick McCarthy to take on the project. But we felt, and Stephen felt, that the commitment to manage the senior team should also be given to him. So when we had the discussions, be it with Stephen Kenny during the week, be it with Mick McCarthy during the week, bringing Robbie Keane in during the week, everybody bought into the vision that the FAI wanted, which was, and is quite simply, that Mick McCarthy will manage the senior team as of now, get us to the Euros for 2020. Stephen Kenny will take over the national team after 2020 to get us to the World Cup.
Is that absolutely watertight, that Stephen Kenny will be the manager in 2020?
Absolutely. You've heard that from Mick McCarthy today, you'll hear that from Stephen Kenny tomorrow, and you've heard that from me today. But in between, Stephen Kenny has a lot of work to do. He's not got the inconsiderable task of managing our under-21s teams and managing our underage teams, and also, which he's passionate about, getting around Europe, seeing international football, talking to managers, learning from Mick McCarthy about his experiences over the next 2 years about managing international football, which is different to club football, given the shortage of time that you have with players. When you manage at club level, we've said it a million times today, you get the players every day, you can work with them every day. In international football, it's different. Martin O'Neill would have made that clear as well when he came in.
Mick McCarthy is only 59. I'm sure he still sees many years in front of him as a manager. Was he aware all the way through that this was going to be a short-term project for him?
Well, you have to meet Mick McCarthy first and tell him what our vision is, and he did. We bought into that. I think it was, you'd nearly, with the way you've just said, it's less than a week since we played Denmark, but I think it was Thursday, Friday. I think Friday that would have sat with Mick, sat down with him, explained it to him, and he said, "Listen, I'm fine with that. I'm good with that." He said, "I want to come back and manage Ireland. I want to get you to a major tournament." I would think somewhere along the way he got to a World Cup, but he wants to get to a Euros as well. And he sees the prize here. 4 games at the Aviva Stadium in 2020. 2 of them could be home. 2 of them would be home games if we qualified. And I think after the dust settles tomorrow, because it's a big press conference that Stephen will do and he'll outline his vision as well, all eyes will be to the draw and who we get, and the qualifying matches through 2019.
It was initially said that maybe Stephen Kenny had turned down the other under-21 job. It sounds as though he drove a pretty hard bargain in the end, that he ended up in this position, that he will be manager in 2 years.
I wouldn't say anybody drove a hard bargain. I think you've got to set out what do you want? What does the board of the FAI want? What does Ruud Doctor want? What did we want? And having discussed it with Mick and having discussed it with Stephen, that vision is now the vision we've outlined today, and I think it's a great vision for Irish football. I think people will say, well, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Let Mick come in, do his stuff, get us qualified. He's proved that he can get us qualified in the past. He's proved that he can work with championship players. He proves that he can get the best out of players. That Mick McCarthy just really is a great example of that. Stephen Kenny is a young, outstanding manager, and he's proved that at League of Ireland level absolutely brilliantly, and he's proved it in European club competition. He's now got the real opportunity to come in and work with the association, with the under-21s and underage level, learn more about international football, and then his job in 2020, which is a long way away yet, but he'll get it, is to take us to Qatar in 2022.
The under-21 job and the games often run simultaneously with the senior role, so he'll have to put his focus there. But is part of his job and Mick McCarthy's to show Stephen Kenny the ropes over the next couple of years? Do you expect him to spend a lot of time with the senior team?
I would expect Ruud Doctor, our high performance director, Mick McCarthy, Stephen Kenny, and all our underage managers, be it Tom Mohan, Conor O'Brien, to spend a lot of time together. Now, to be fair, that had been happening in the last 12 months. Martin had been meeting with the underage managers, but this is going to take it to another level, to another step, because Stephen has actually taken the 21s and the underage managers. So there'll be many, many meetings, comparison of players, reports on scouting, style of play, and I think that can only be positive for our game.
Finally, you know well that hiring and firing managers is an expensive business. Does this change your plans financially for the FAI for the coming years, and paying off the debt in 2020, is that going to be affected at all by what's happened in the past week?
The problem with speculation is a lot of nonsense gets printed. So I've been reading the last couple of weeks figures being put out. This is going to cost X amount, this is going to cost Y, whatever it would be. And we can't come out and deny that because that's speculation. The FAI has made a profit for the last 9 years. It will make a profit in 2018. There'll be 10 profits in a row. Of course, our aim is still to reduce the debt of Viva down to zero by 2020. And nothing that's happened over the last couple of days, be it in terms of ending contracts with the old managers, which are confidential, or implementing new contracts with new managers, or bringing in under-21 managers, has affected that.
Thanks for your time, John.
Thank you.